And welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles. Came back from Florida with a terrible head cold about 5 days ago, but I'm on the mend and well enough to do this. And I've got the smiling guy with the mustache there is the old left-hander, Ross Grimsley. Ross, how are you?
Wonderful, Stan. How you doing? How you feeling, buddy?
I'm feeling pretty good. It was great to see you and Bird down at the John and Margaret Angelo's Athletes for Artists, Play for Artists event there at Sarasota. I hope you enjoyed it.
We had a good time. Got plenty of food and plenty of music. It was fun.
All right. Well, somebody I've become friendly with over the years is wearing that Oriole hat. He loves his Orioles. And one thing about Eric Garfield is he knows the Oriole prospects better than anybody. And we're going to start to grill him on that right after this word about the Costas Inn. And you guys know, anybody who's watching this knows I've been doing this for close to 2.5 years now, I think, Ross. We've been doing this.
Yeah.
The Zooms, and Costas Inn's been with us the whole way through. They've been around they've been around over 50 years. So that means they started like around 1970, 71. Still at the same location, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Been lots of changes, but one thing that doesn't change, great food and great service if you go in the restaurant. But during the pandemic, they realized that there was a niche market there for good food, but people weren't comfortable going in restaurants. Some people still aren't. They've got the perfect solution for you, and that's curbside. Go to costasinn.com. You can order your food online. You can pay for it online. And then when you pick it up, you don't even have to get out of your car. They'll deliver it to your car, and everything is packed immaculately. So grandma's crab soup or cream of crab soup isn't going to spill on your ribs. All right. The Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard, friends of the fan. And I hope you make it a place to go to. What are you laughing about there, Eric Garfield?
I'm not like a food toucher, but if crab soup spills on ribs, I'm going to eat the soup and I'm going to eat the ribs also. But I understand people that don't desire that.
Okay. All right. That's good. I'm glad you understand.
It ain't going to stop me either.
That's right. It ain't stopping me either. No. Especially if I've driven there and driven home with it. And I was, it's got the soup on the rib.
Ribs, crabs.
It honestly, I've taken 20 orders out of there over the last couple of years. 20, 25 orders. Never happened. Happened. Eric, first of all, thank you for doing this. It was good bumping into you the other day at Twin Lakes Park. Why don't we start really quickly? I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I met you about 5 years ago. You had the snowball concession at Ed Smith Stadium. Why don't you tell folks what happened to you over those couple of years?
Okay, Stan, I'm also glad that we've become friends recently, and I'm happy to do this anytime you want. Very briefly about me. I moved from Baltimore in 2015. I wanted to start a snowball and dessert business in Sarasota, and I did so successfully. I had a store, I had a couple trucks, and when I was about to expand my business and go a little bit larger and try to make some money, I got into a pretty bad bicycle accident, and it cost me my healthy shoulder for the rest of my life. Fortunately, not much more, but I had to give up the business. And when I did, I decided to turn my attention to the best minor league system on planet Earth. It was 2019, and that's when the Orioles just drafted Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson. And the system from then has been even better. So it was a bad event, but the timing was kind of fortuitous.
It was a great case of fortuitous timing for you.
Thank you.
Want to ask you a question? You and I have both gotten to know Matt Blood. He's done our Zoom a couple times with Ross and I, and awesome. You've gotten to know him. How much credit does the guy that's the head of player development deserve for this?
A great deal. But I know that everything that happens with the drafting and the talent acquisition, and especially the amateur baseball, like high school tournaments and stuff like that, I know he's in charge of it. So he's well aware of everything that's going on. You know, it's a kind of a couple groups to be the head of, but he's got his hand on the pulse of this type of talent, and he's great. He's a great communicator. He's a pretty straight shooter. And I like the fact that he's heading these very, very capable departments. When I am at Twin Lakes, I was there for 6 hours today. He is outside for more hours than me, communicating, observing. I actually got the chance to meet he has two young sons, I think Vinny and Harry, and they're actually pretty good baseball players for someone that's 6 and 9. So they went home, I think, this weekend. So now Blood's job is to focus on who's improving, who starts where, and, you know, stuff like that. But I think, you know, I don't know the standard for comparison. I don't know the people that were there before him, but he's doing an amazing job. I mean, all you have to do is look at the talent in the system.
All right. Ross, I'm going to let you start the grilling on specific players, my friend.
Sure. Well, first of all, hey, Eric, where you obviously have a baseball background, or you've learned very quickly. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
I do not have a baseball background. I mean, I've been an Orioles fan for my whole life. Born in the late 70s. My family had season tickets at Memorial Stadium. My family had season tickets at Camden Yards. So I'll go by on I'm a fast learner. And when I observe stuff, I can share it with other people. So I guess
you're also an athlete. You were pretty good, damn good basketball player. I know before you got hurt.
I'm not going to say that. You know, I'll let you say it. But you know, it's not like I'm not a couch potato. There's still some people in the Orioles system that I think I could beat at basketball.
Hey, Eric, well, you know, first of all, tell us. I mean, we know about all the big name guys. I think one of the things I'd like to know is, have you had a chance to talk or any communication with the Latin players? Because they have a big Latin contingent now that they've never had in the past. So
wow.
If you got a chance to talk to some of those guys and
a great question.
And how the Orioles are handling it, because I know being with the Giants, we had a lot of Latin guys, and they spent a lot of time teaching them English and doing stuff at the hotels for them. Are both sides working out or getting this together?
The short answer is yes, but you're about to get a much longer answer. This is something that I've watched with great detail from, I guess, like 2019. The accommodations, the level of assistance, the ability to communicate and hire staff that's bilingual, all these things have happened many times over. So not only are there talented players from Venezuela, Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic in the Orioles system, but they're not lost. They're not alone. They have a network, and it's actually a huge network connecting them to other people, trainers, resources, rides, ways to learn English and continue their education. So as the players have gotten better, and I'm telling you, Samuel Basayo, the catcher, Michael Hernandez, the infielder, Anderson De Los Santos, the corner, Raul Rangel, the pitcher. I mean, I could go on forever. These people would not be in the Orioles system just a few years ago. So the fact that they built the academy in the Dominican Republic, but this is a huge cultural change that I'm watching. And these people are teaching me Spanish. My Spanish has improved really, really quickly because some of them are comfortable speaking it around me, their own language around me. So,
and Eric, you just introduced me the other day to the young kid that they just paid their biggest signing bonus. What was his name? Almeida?
That's right. That's Luis Almeida. Stan, that guy is 16 years old. And by the way, his Spanish and his English, absolutely perfect. So he is 100% bilingual, can switch like anything in a game, talking to somebody. He actually made a couple nice plays today, even though he only came in the 8th inning. He's getting better every single day.
He's the kid, not to interrupt you, Ross. He's the kid that was actually from Connecticut, but then went down to Dominican Republic.
Close, New Jersey, Passaic, New Jersey. The same as my mom, Roberta Garfield.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Ross, go ahead.
Eric, where do you see some of these guys landing? At the beginning of the season, are they going to be? I know some of the guys obviously coming from the Dominican first or second year, they'll be at the lower levels. I understand that, but where do you see some of these other guys? The guys you mentioned, where do you see them starting the season at?
Well, I'm pretty sure that the international signing class that features Basayo, Michael Hernandez, and Anderson De Los Santos, I think that's 2020. They're already ready for low A. So I expect them to be at Delmarva. The other players that made up the most of the rookie leagues last year, I expect some of them to stay, at least at the beginning part of the season, in Sarasota. And the other bigger international guys from last year, they have yet to arrive. Some of them are expensive players, high profile prospects. So I'd expect them to be here for the second half of the season, or maybe even extended spring training. Luis Almeida, the 16-year-old that I mentioned from this year, he's the only player in any organization from the international draft. No team has their first pick from this year at camp already. So to me, that's kind of an indicator that he's on a bit of an advanced track. So I don't think he himself is getting sent back to the Dominican Republic. I expect when the rookie league, the FCL, starts in May, for him to be on a team, which is really says a lot about what the Orioles think about him.
Really?
Yeah, he's
he sounds like a fast mover, or they got a plan for him to do that, but that's pretty interesting. Go ahead, Stan.
Wanted to ask you about one player in particular that you kind of brought up the other day. I was talking to you about Heston Kjerstad, who's having a really terrific camp, continued today, and I said, well, he was shaking the rust off last year, and you made it clear to me that the idea that he's still got any rust now should be dismissed, because you got to witness how hard this guy worked from the Arizona Fall League last year, where he kind of burst out as a star after missing, all of 2020 and 21. Tell us what you talked to him and what he did during the off season to be really prepared. He hit the ground running this spring training.
Well, I actually, strangely, I had not communicated with him. I communicated with other members of his family who I met at the backfield, namely his sister, McCall, who is just an awesome, awesome sister and brags about Heston even more than I did. But I guess what I can say is, like, you don't get a chance to have your commitment level questioned when you're at a team's complex for 14 months in a row. And you can only go home to see your family or to see your girlfriend really like 2 weeks out of 14 months. So most people don't go to the complex to watch practice. Sometimes it's only Heston. So I went every day and I saw him. And it's a strange thing. I guess Ross is a professional baseball player. You know this. You don't just get better in games. You can get better at practice over time. And look at the results. Look what Heston is doing right now. He's executing at the absolute highest level. So I never had any doubt that this guy would be this type of star player. So I'm not surprised. I'm kind of proud of him. But the Orioles made a good draft pick. If you're a good drafting organization, these are the kind of things that should happen. Really, when you look at his situation, I just want him to be as healthy as possible, and it looks like he's close.
We had a good fall league too. He was
had a real good fall league. Yeah.
MVP.
Yeah.
So
that says a lot right there.
Let me ask you a question. When you would watch him, and it might be just you and him, who was he hitting against? The machines?
They have, that's another part. The staff, the training staff is extremely capable. Some of these people are former players. Some of these people have just had their playing career ended within the last season. Sometimes it's machine pitch. Sometimes it's coach pitch. Sometimes it's toss. Sometimes it's defense only. But they obviously had a very specific plan. How do we get Heston better despite the fact that he is injured, or the fact that he has myocarditis? we are going to do it no matter what. And again, look at where he is. Look at how this guy plays baseball.
Yeah. Well, it's a remarkable story, and it shows that he kind of understood that he's lost some time and he wants to make up for it. So he was really ready for this spring training. He knew how important it is. Where do you see him? And again, you're not speaking for the club, you're speaking for yourself.
Right.
Would he be ready for AAA, or do you think it makes sense for him to start at Bowie?
Oh, wow. I guess that's a great question. And I'll say the answer to that is both. I think that, depending on what the organization wants to do, they could have him skip AA. There's no really rules, not a law. I don't think that that's their modus operandi. However, I think they want him batting fourth with Kyle Moore as the manager, with Kobe Mayo batting third right in front of him for at least 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I think they know what he's going to do, but they just want to make sure. And then AAA after that. So that's kind of what I think. I could be completely wrong and completely off, and they want to do it not conservative and rush it. Maybe they have a mindset like we're ready to trade Mullins or move on from Austin Hayes. So these are things that I don't know. I'm just telling what I see. It would not surprise me at all if he's the cleanup hitter for Bowie for at least a month.
Who's ahead of him in AAA?
Well, right now it looks like Colton Cowser, another really high draft pick that people are just like, was this guy ready? He also hasn't been sent down from Major League Camp yet, and we only got a couple days left. So there's a little bit of an indicator if you pay attention to stuff like that. Some people, Ross, say Kjerstad is ahead of Cowser. So it's just, some organizations have no outfielders like this. So it's just a
really? You got to find playing time for them. And also you got to find if somebody goes down at the big league level, who do you want to take to the big leagues? Usually they'll take a veteran guy, but if these guys are progressing like it sounds like they are and doing some of the stuff they're doing, hey, they might throw them in the fire. They need to find out about some of these young guys, because I know there's many as they have. Some of these guys are going to be on the block to get some pitching. I can almost, if that's the blueprint they have now of what they did in Houston, free agent pitchers, trade for pitchers. So that could be the thing. And if you're fortunate enough to develop some, hey, go for it. But I think the O's are one of the big things I think is moving the fences back was one of the things they should have done before. And I think we talked about it, Stan, 7 years ago about that. But that's I see some things. Let me ask you a question. Talking to these young guys, as many as you do, and young, and even some of the second, third year minor league guys, what are some of the biggest challenges that they've been facing coming out of amateur ball into professional ball? What's some of the things that you've heard them talk about that's a big change?
Well, I guess this is so strange for me to say as like a 40-year Oriole fan, but the competition starts immediately, not just for what affiliate or what are you going to go to. Like, how do I let this coach know that I'm good at baseball when I'm a catcher and there's 3 catchers ahead of me, or when I'm an infielder and when the top of the organization is Gunnar Henderson, and then we got guys like Jackson Holiday and Carter Young and Fred Ben Cosme,
Joey Ortiz,
right. I mean, it's just the competition is so immediate. There are some guys that played at high-level programs, high school or college, where it's not like that. They had their spot from their junior year. The second you get into this organization, it's a fight for oxygen. It's never been that way in my whole life. I promise you, over the next couple of years, there's going to be guys that, like you said, the organization's not going to find enough time. Somebody good is getting traded, and we're just not going to realize it until they're a starter on the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, they have to understand that they're playing for other teams as well.
Yeah.
So just because you don't make it with the Orioles doesn't mean you can't make it somewhere else. So
the Orioles already traded one very nice prospect, Darrell Hernandez, for Cole Irvin, and that's what they're going to have to do to get better pitching. Let's talk a little bit I just want to go backwards for 1 second because we talked about Kjerstad and Colton Cowser. But there's a couple of outfielders that they brought in this past year in the draft, Dylan Beavers and Judd Fabian. Talk a little bit about them. And I know they're probably going to start, I guess, are they Delmarva bound this year, or are they a little lower than that this year?
Well, I can tell you that at these games that I go to, the teams are divided up into Delmarva and Aberdeen. It's kind of rudimentary, but you can kind of tell both of them have been on Aberdeen 3 games in a row. So I think because they went to college, they excelled in college, they went to high programs, high programs. They already did well at Delmarva last year. So I'm going to think that they go to Aberdeen. But man, those guys are great baseball players, and they are going to start putting pressure on the Cowsers and the Kjerstads very soon. Fabian, they talk about that he, the criticisms from his game from college were swing and miss. I can see it. He needs to improve that a little bit, but he's a fine hitter, and he's an even better outfielder. His routes are outstanding. He's a true center fielder, so people don't, talk about that about his game. Fabian is an absolute future star. People talked about him being the #1 overall draft pick. I can see that. I can fully see it. He is going.
And what about Beavers? What do you like about him?
Okay, Beavers is a little bit taller, a little bit of a longer athlete, but everything about him is so smooth and so measured. His steps in the outfield, he'll steal bases without being a real burner. He just knows when to do it. All his baseball actions are so clean. Decent speed, good arm, good routes, but a great hit tool and such effortless power. These guys being the comp pick and the second round pick, again, there's organizations that don't have outfielders as good as these two, and they're like 21. Right. So such a great problem for the Orioles to have as far as talent in the mid and low minors.
Ross, go ahead.
Yeah. Have you seen Grayson Rodriguez?
Yes.
Have you talked to him? What do you think's the plan that the O's have for him? Obviously, it sounds like he's going to go and be the 5th guy or 6th guy, whatever. How are they going to handle him? What are they going to do as far as innings, starts, all that type of thing, which is really interesting to me.
Right. We're going to see by the end of the year exactly who he is and how he fits. I think it's going to be he's a star and he fits really well. But I've communicated with him on days when he's pitching or throwing, and I've communicated with him on days when he's not. When he's pitching or throwing, he really doesn't want to talk. He really doesn't want to divulge a lot of stuff. He wants to focus on his work, and that's the athlete that I've come to know over the years. He's a pretty serious guy when it's his day. When it's not, he's very thoughtful, very introspective, very detail-oriented. And we have talked about what this year is going to look like. And he told me plenty. And I guess what I'm comfortable sharing is he's going to get every opportunity to compete. If he competes well, he's going to get every opportunity to be a rotation stalwart. If he can stay in the rotation, he's going to be given every opportunity to lead it. I don't think he's going to be throwing a full 170 to 200 innings, but it's probably going to be more than 120. So his workload is pretty established, but we're going to have to see how well he beats bats. Yeah. How well does he execute with 2 strikes? Is he ready to be a #1 starter like all the fans like me think he is? If not, then we're going to have to find a space for him in the back of the rotation and let his innings build up. Yeah. Hopefully he's somewhere between one of those 2 things.
What the injury that he had?
Yep.
What was that, and how did it happen? How did it transpire?
Okay, it was a mild lat tear he's right-handed, so it was his throwing shoulder. And as soon as it was just warming up last year, I guess in between days, throwing session, just something very light, and he identified it immediately. And the team basically said, your exercise is done for a very long time. No throwing, no run, no lifting. We do not want you putting any unnecessary stress on your arm. So when you do come back at the beginning of 2023, you can be as fresh as possible. And guess what? it looks like it worked.
Yeah, he hadn't had any problems. It sounds like so. That's yeah.
So let's say to
Yeah.
answer your first question, like between 120 and 150 innings is like a reasonable target.
Right. What have you heard about John Means?
I haven't. I saw him a couple times at Major League camp at Ed Smith Stadium a couple weeks ago.
He looks like a Eric. He looks like a different human being. He looks like he's lost all body fat, and he's used this time away from throwing to get his body really in top shape. I would say he's lost 15, 18 pounds.
There are quite a few bodies that have gone through changes like that. Bruce Zimmerman is definitely another one. I mean, this he is jacked. So, but I didn't get a chance to talk to Means. I just observed him. He was doing PFPs, pitcher cover bases, stuff like that. So, and he was throwing overhand, which I was a little surprised. There's guys in various stages of recovery that can't throw at all or can't throw overhand, and he was.
He's thrown a couple bullpens, hadn't he?
I haven't seen him, but I've read about.
I heard that he did. So that was actually I talked to at the function. Me and Stammer, I talked to Elias a little bit about him, and I was talking about Joe Nathan, who was a pitcher a while back, and went through a labrum tear and stuff, and kind of talking about what he went through and stuff. So yeah, that was it. I was just wondering about him. Go ahead, Stan.
I wanted to ask you about the guy that I was tremendously excited to see last year. I went out to Aberdeen the night that Adley Rutschman was, I think, playing in his first game coming back or the second game. But the guy I was really excited to see was Kobe Mayo. And Mayo had a couple at bats. He hit the ball hard one time. He grounded into a double play, I think, and then he struck out. And he came up the third time, and I turned to Luke Jackson, our editor, who you just saw help us set up tonight's show. And I said, Luke, you see in the same pitcher 3 times, you ought to be able to pick one out. And I didn't even get the out. And I heard this sound that was very unique. And I looked up, and he had hit a moonshot. And then I heard he hit 2 home runs the next night. Didn't have a great season, battled a little bit of back injuries, I think, but he's got a chance to be a real special player.
I follow prospects all over the sport. Every minor league organization I have some knowledge of. There's no prospect that I like or have more faith in their ability than Kobe Mayo. I am a true believer in his power profile. I always have been. I don't know what it is, but it's probably the fact that baseball is changing a little bit and higher exit velocities are becoming the norm. So somebody big and strong is going to have to normalize 110 mile per hour outs. I think that that's him. And he's an awesome third baseman with a rocket arm who's tall enough to throw it across the diamond. I've watched his good skill set become great, and I've never had any reason to doubt what he can turn into. I wrote articles in 2020 when he was drafted that I see the Orioles returning to prominence when Kobe's the third baseman, Gunnar is the shortstop. I don't feel any differently at all. In fact, I feel it even stronger.
It's interesting. You looking ahead, I happened to ask, it was another scout or somebody we had on, Ross, one night, but I asked him if needed, did he think that Jackson Holliday would be a good center fielder? And he said he could play center field because you don't want to have to trade Gunnar Henderson because you got Kobe Mayo and Jackson Holliday. You want them all 3 there because then you got a fierce team.
I've hung out over the outfield wall when Jackson Holliday is shagging, and he is an outstanding baseball athlete. There's no skill that he's a zero in. I don't want to say he's an excellent outfielder, but he's not going to hurt you, and he could probably practice to improve it. I like his skills in the infield, but there's some guys, some good prospects that can't play every position. He can play every.
He can play every.
Well, they were good about drafting. They drafted center fielders. They drafted shortstops, and center fielders can play anywhere now. They play the corners. Shortstops can do anything.
Right.
Most of them. That's usually the best player on the team in their high school, college, or whatever. Some shortstops can pitch and become pitchers. Joe Nathan, who I mentioned, he became a pitcher. Right. Dick Tidrow changed him and became an outstanding pitcher. But yeah, they did some good things, drafted some good catchers, middle infielders, basically shortstops and center fielders. That's what you got to do. They all say strong up the middle. There you go.
And this for 1 second, excuse me, we're in the middle of this and we're going to go about another 5 or 10 minutes, but I just wanted to alert people that are watching this live at 6:33 in the afternoon or early evening that at 7 o'clock, Mexico is going to play Japan on Fox Sports 1 to decide which of those two teams will play the U.S. for the World Baseball Classic Championship. And the starting pitcher for Japan is going to be this guy, Sasaki, Roki Sasaki, who they say is pretty darn special. Just wanted to jump that in. So you love Kobe Mayo. I want to ask you about one player two players that have eluded us a little bit because I don't think we quite know where they're going to fit in. And I'll throw a third one in. That's Jordan Westberg, Connor Norby, and Joey Ortiz. I mean, we haven't mentioned Ortiz.
Right. I guess I'm not that good at this. I'm not a roster maker. I think Jordan Westberg makes the team. I think he's too versatile. And right now, his game is not short or not deficient in any area. He can come in as a second baseman, a third baseman, or a shortstop, defensive replacement, offensive replacement. Okay, that's fine. He went to college, he graduated, high draft pick. He's developed and he's ready. And he's very strong. He's also hitting it a lot harder than he has. Joey Ortiz, a little bit defense ahead of offense. That's his reputation. That's kind of what I observe. He'll never make an error in the field, like never. His fielding percentage will be 1,000, but he might not be the clutch at bat. He might not make that 3-1 swing decision that the Orioles really seem to value. So those guys are a little bit different. Connor Norby, I see him at, if you look around the landscape of baseball, there's not a lot of power hitting second baseman.
Right.
So when he hits his ceiling, he might be the power hitting second baseman in the sport. Everybody's talking about trading him and his value is more. I would hold on to that guy because he could hit 30 home runs and the next best second baseman hits 17. So I think he's close to ready now, but I would let him season a little bit at Norfolk as much as it would frustrate him, but just to prove and finalize the profile that the Orioles have in him. Tough to have all the guys together.
It sounds seriously. They've been Baseball America has been doing the top farm systems, rating them since 1984. This is the first time the Orioles have ever been number one.
And we're dominant.
And you got to go back to the 70s, Ross, before you became an Oriole, the 60s. I mean, when you had Boog Powell developed, and then it was, Merv Rettenman, and it was, it was just.
They did mostly pitching, Stan. They did mostly pitching.
Yeah, Bobby Grich, and then David Taylor. Johnson, Bobby Grich. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I want to turn to the pitching area. Two pitchers I'm curious about. Have you seen much of the new left-hander that they acquired in the Jorge Lopez deal, Cade Povich? Have you seen him yet?
Many times, Stan. That trade is a win for the Orioles. That trade was an awesome one without him in it, and he's the next pitching prospect seized to be an ace. This guy's not a 1A. He's not a 2. He has 3 out pitches. They all move. I've seen it with success against every level of minor league pitcher and some Orioles veterans at Major League camp. Cade Povich is an absolute show. And again, I will repeat it. That trade was a win without him. Getting him it's a coup.
Now,
Everybody,
did you know about him before the
oh,
Orioles?
absolutely. Yes, very much so. Yes. I'm still, there's twin scouts that I go to Twin Lakes with all the time. And I'm like, you didn't have to give us that guy also. And they were just like, well, that's a sign of how much my organization actually listens to me. So yeah, he was a hot prospect. I'm still shocked that the Twins included him. I mean, look what happened with Jorge Lopez.
Yeah.
Wasn't exactly an all-star on the other side of this deal. So
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. One more pitcher that I know about. It's the guy that they paid over slot 2 years ago, but then he had Tommy John surgery, and I think he's had some other health issues. Carter Baumler. Where is he in the mix now, and how do you assess his capabilities?
Ironically, last year I went to Delmarva in the first week of June. I saw his most dominant start as an Oriole. I think it was June 6th or June 7th. Since then, he's had various levels of soreness post-start or post-usage. They identified him as having a cyst. So he had the procedure to remove it, and the recovery from that has not gone as well as they planned it at the beginning. I know he's here in the complex, and he's kind of on that Kjerstad plan. He's been here for a really long time, and it looks like he's going to be here for a little while longer. I guess what I'm comfortable with saying is that his plan is to build up strength so he can be used heavily as a starter when he's done. And I would expect that if everything goes right from where they are now, for him to be pitching in a uniform at some affiliate somewhere after maybe a little bit before the All-Star break.
You think it would be Delmarva or possibly Aberdeen?
Well, honestly, Stan, this is another thing that Orioles fans are not going to be used. There's just so much talent at every single level, even internationally, that if he's going to restart a developmental track, it might be here in Sarasota in the rookie leagues. Just honestly, so he can have 4 or 5 starts with an ERA under 1 and a WHIP even under a half, so he can just blow guys away on his way back to affiliated baseball. Again, I'm not a farm director or anything like that, but that's probably how I would handle it.
But you like the talent from what you've seen.
Carter's awesome. Carter is a great pitcher. And I do believe that his procedure and recovery he's going to be one of the cases, because he's young and healthy enough, where his miles per hour is just going to tick right up. So this guy's going to be throwing 97, 98 pretty easily. Carter's awesome.
Now, you just threw something at us, because Ross and I talk a lot about the organization. We know we're loaded with outfielders. We know we're loaded with infielders. But the pitching category, those are the 2 names I know, Baumler and Povich, that I'm interested in. You're saying there's a logjam in pitching? And is any of it coming from the international signings?
Probably my favorite one, a guy that pitched today. I haven't gone through my phone, but I probably have about 19 to 30 strikes from this pitcher, is Juan De Los Santos. Very, very big bodied guy, in great shape. He pitched at Delmarva last year. I'm sitting behind the scouts today, and I'm watching their guns, and it's 92, 94. Then he gets into a tight spot, and it's a good hitter that's up, and he bears down, and he strikes him out. And I look at the third pitch, and it was 97. I just love this guy. He's 265 pounds. Okay. He's
built is he built like Bautista?
Oh, no. He's like 6'2", 6'2". So it's a smaller frame. All the weight is in his lower body. He's got a lot of butt and legs, and he really uses it. He can put serious drop on this guy's got 3 breaking balls. So he's one guy that I'm crazy about, but
will he be at Delmarva this year?
He was there last year. He'll probably start there
and go to Aberdeen.
Expect him to be in Aberdeen and be a dependable piece for them by the end of the year. But the draft last year, the college draft, and I've actually talked to Sig Maydell from the Orioles about this. This is something that most fans don't realize, because nobody's broke it yet. Every pitcher they got last year has a weapon. Every pitcher is going to, at the very least, dominate in the low minors. Brad Bramer from Indiana, Graham Fireved from Virginia Tech, Wyatt Chaney, I don't know exactly where he went. Cameron Weston from Michigan, Preston Johnson from Mississippi State. These guys are not just regular guys that we need to fill out our draft board. They all have a weapon. And the reason that I know it is because I can see it. So when you have 8 guys that are good, it's going to cause a logjam at the lower minors level. There's players from the DSL team that expect to be here. They might have to wait a whole season. And that's just because of the fact that there's so much talent. So many guys can get the job done inning by inning. I'm watching it happen.
All right. It's called the Florida Prospect Report, and it's a podcast, and it's at FL Prospect Pod on Twitter. It's audio only, and you're writing a little bit for Russell Street Report.
Utah Street
Street Report. Yep.
Right now, I really am watching so much that I barely even have enough time to do it. But
okay,
during the season, there will be some storylines that pop up. Absolutely.
All right. We'll have you on again because you really know this stuff cold.
I think so.
You're doing a great job.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I've been listening to you since I was a kid, so I'm glad to do it.
Me too.
Yeah. I think you've been listening to me since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Since you were a kid. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I feel really old.
Oh yeah.
All right. Hey guys, it's been great. We'll do this again once the season starts. All right.
Great. Eric, thank you so much.
Eric, is there anything else we can plug for you?
I think you've done enough. I actually, for Oriole fans that are listening, I also have an Instagram account. It's Eric_Birdland22, and most of the stuff that I can't put on Twitter because there's too much of it, I put it there also. So
okay, give it the address one more time.
That is Eric_Birdland22.
All right. You're doing a great job, Eric. Seriously. And it's great catching up with you. All right. Ross, we'll see you next week. We'll talk this week about who we're going to seek and destroy. All right. Maybe we'll get Ken Singleton on just on the eve of the baseball season.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah, he's available, I'm sure. He's beloved.
Is that a possibility?
Oh, yeah. Always.
All right. For Eric Garland of FL Prospect Pod on Twitter. And folks in Baltimore, take that down because you're going to want to listen to his audio reports. And your partner is who, Eric? I'm sorry.
It's a kid that's kind of like me, a little younger than me. His name is Bailey Srebnick. He lives in Florida, and he's all about the minor leagues. Today, he and I were talking back and forth. I'm at Orioles minor league camp. He's at a spring training game in Fort Myers, filming Rafael Devers. So I'm glad that we found each other. He's an awesome dude.
All right, great. Have some fun with it. Figure out how to make some money at it. All right, because you put time into it.
Okay.
All right. For all three of us, we'll see you soon down the road. And again, the Japan versus Mexico game is going to start in 15 minutes. That's if you're watching live on Facebook Live. See you soon, everybody. And thanks to the Costas Inn. Bye.